I think that Taylor is really good at manipulating people, clearly. I think she is very astute at seeming charming and likable and keeping the evil under wraps, clearly. We know she did not ascend the ladder of fame and fortune without knowing how to play the game, but she's really good at not seeming to know how to play the game. And I think that Blake's clunky pleads to friends, her blatant unkindness towards Justin, her need for everybody to believe that he was the absolute worst person ever, in the form of just degrading talk, immature jabs. I think the overall clunkiness of it was offensive to Taylor's more refined manipulation techniques. I think that Taylor was probably embarrassed for Blake and annoyed that Blake was doing it so badly. And I think that's why she washed her hands of Blake. I think she lost respect for Blake's ability to play the game. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We have so many stories to talk about today. And one of the first ones I want to talk about is this whole Brooklyn Beckham family drama saga. Now here's the deal. You and I know that I could care less about this story. I've said it many a time, mostly because I just don't see what the story is. I feel like we're dragging this along, and every time I bring it up, I'm always like, not sure why we're talking about this, but it continues to be a huge story every time it comes to press. And I always wonder, like, who is driving this? Who thinks this is interesting? Because up until this point, there's just been very little that we could prove definitively as a lie. I mean, there's been a lot of things where Brooklyn says his family has said one thing, the family says Brooklyn has done another. But, you know, if you want to argue back and forth about who unfollowed who and when and why and how, I mean, I don't really care, you know. And up until this point, there's just been lots of talk about how he is trying to make a new life with Nicola, and his mom has always tried to interfere with him, and he's trying to break free from the strangulation of what it is to be a Beckham. And he has claimed, though not directly, but through many sources, that his unhappiness with his family was that their whole life is orchestrated for social media and for publicity, and like he just wants to be a real guy living a real life, you know. So it just sucks having to be part of a family where they don't really want real, they want fake, and they want media attention, and they want to just be on their socials all day creating a highlight reel, but that's not who he is. And that's kind of the story he's told, but the company he keeps are people like Harry and Meghan. So if Harry and Meghan are some of your good friends, and we know their tenuous relationship with the truth, it just makes it hard to believe anything you say. Like, you have found out people who are professional victims, and now you're going over and learning some of their best tricks on how to cry and cry harder. You know, it's like, if they had some legitimate friends who were all like, those are respectable people, you know, solid folks, then it would make it feel like Brooklyn and Nicola were maybe done wrong in some kind of way that we had no way of verifying. Okay, well, but over the weekend, he decided to come out on his social media and write a really long and wordy description of why it is he can't be close to his family anymore. And most of it hinges on what he says happened at his wedding that just made it very clear to him that he could not continue on with these people. And some of the things that he claims have happened between him and his family, again, we cannot verify. You know, like he says, we showed up in London, but then nobody would see us. And so we kind of just hung out in our hotel room waiting for somebody to come and visit with us or to make plans with us. And they just wouldn't. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. And so a lot of the claims in his post about conversations that happened or someone unfollowed somebody or, you know, whatever the chronology of disdain has been in the family, we cannot verify because we weren't there. But one of the huge claims that we most certainly can verify, and which I feel like shows us entirely his relationship with the truth, is what he says happens with his wife's wedding dress. Now, he claims that his mom had agreed to make the wedding dress and that Nicola was super excited. But then, would you believe it? At the 11th hour, according to him, his mom just kind of like threw up her hands and was like, I'm done. I'm not doing it. Now, what kind of a professional would do that? And if his mother is anything, she's a professional. I mean, she went from a Spice Girl to a legitimate brand. And Victoria Beckham knows what she's about. So how would it help her in any way to suddenly give up on the wedding dress of her daughter-in-law? I'm pretty sure that would have been huge news if it had happened. If that had happened, it would have been leaked. Somebody would have said something like, you wouldn't believe what Victoria did. You know, it wouldn't just be this like kind of shadowy story, this vague story from Brooklyn about how his mom failed his new wife. It would be a story. A major designer just kind of reneging on a wedding dress of all the things to decide that you just weren't going to do at the 11th hour. A major designer letting somebody sort of just flap in the wind. Hope it goes okay on your wedding day. I'm done. Like, that's not going to happen. You know? Now, it could be a situation where the wedding dress was made and then the bride decides to be disappointed in the final outcome. But no designer would be like, I'm just not going to do it. Oh, you're getting married in a month? Sorry. I'm just tired of the project. Bye. Get a life, Brooklyn. If you're going to lie, figure out a lie that we'll believe. But it gets so much worse for him because, you know, a person could still say, yes, but maybe that did happen. Maybe the Beckhams have so much power in the press that they were somehow able to hide this major story about how a major designer quit on her future daughter-in-law at the 11th hour. Maybe they just have that much power in the media. It's like, if they had that much power in the media, don't you think they would have shut down the story that continues to rear its ugly head about Brooklyn's dad having an affair with Rebecca Lou? But whatever. Anyway, a person could still choose to believe that there's this major conspiracy where Brooklyn just cannot get his voice out because of his overbearing parents. However, if you have Vogue covering your wedding, and they do an entire spread about not only the dress but also the day, it's going to be a little bit hard for you to lie about what happened when there's an entire spread about it. So at this point, Brooklyn is now going to have to attack Vogue because they wrote a whole spread about this dress that she had made by Valentino. It took 11 months to make. How exactly is that something having been quit on at the 11th hour when you have to, out of the wedding, plan to have a dress made and it's going to take close to a year to be made? I don't know how someone quits on you in the 11th hour, but you still have 11 months to make a couture gown. And let me just say, this was not just her like picking something off the rack, okay? This was 2 trips to Rome. Then they sent somebody to America for 2 extra fittings. The seamstress was flying to Miami to make sure that every little detail was correct. They had all of this time spent picking out all of the details, all of the fabrics. I mean, it was the ultimate couture experience as reported by Vogue. So Brooklyn, your little tale about how your mom quit on you, I'm sorry, verifiably untrue. You don't get a Valentino dress custom made for you with 2 fittings in Rome and 2 fittings in the States and a seamstress who will fly anywhere to do the last minute details, and this was all at the 11th hour. Okay, what kind of 11th hour are you referring to? You know, is this, as the Lord would say, very soon? I mean, are you working on the Lord's time? Because in regular speech, 11th hour means, hey, tomorrow's my wedding and I don't have a dress. That's what that phrase means. So anyway, all the other things that he decided to complain about, you know, how his mom did their wedding dance with him. Mark Anthony announces the song and then invites his mom on stage. And then according to him, his mom did a very inappropriate dance with him, nuzzling her nose into his neck, which is a really weird thing to suggest that your mom is doing. Like, what are you trying to say? Is this your revelation that your mom has always been inappropriate with you physically? I mean, you're the one who chose to have Mama's Boy tattooed onto your chest. So explain to me, at which point were you suddenly aware that your mom was just too much? It feels like you realized that when you met another woman who wanted to be just too much in your life. Brooklyn says he and his wife didn't get to have a first dance because what should have been the first dance his mother stole from Nicola, and then he had to endure the most embarrassing scenario of all time. Well, his side of the wedding guests hooted and hollered and cheered, and her side looked on aghast, shocked, and bewildered that any such thing could happen. And I think the thing that I don't understand is, then why does Vogue report that you did indeed have a first dance? Why do they have pictures and they say that you danced to Can't Help Falling in Love? What are you talking about? You didn't have a first dance. Now again, A person could argue and say, well, money will pay for Vogue to say what Vogue needs to say in order to keep the family name afloat. Maybe there was some great big drama, but what I would love to know is, where's the video? You're going to tell me that this wasn't taped in some way? There wasn't a videographer there to commemorate this day in which your wife is wearing a Valentino dress that took 11 months to make? You guys just didn't want to get any pictures or shots of that? Like, I can understand maybe the guests weren't allowed to have phones. I don't know what the protocol was for this specific wedding, so I'm not surprised that maybe there's not a guest video. But Brooklyn, if you want to really expose your family, and clearly you do because you wanted to go on your stories and write a novel about how they just have shunned you and spurned you at every turn of the way, why would you not immediately be like, I'm going to need a clip of that video? I want video evidence so everyone knows who this is, instead of these vague claims in which you were done wrong by. And, I'm not saying that you weren't. Maybe you were. But based on the evidence alone that we can scrape together, just on the dress alone, that doesn't hold water. So I'm just going to need a little bit more from you, Brooklyn, if I'm supposed to be led by the nose down the lane to this story where your family is the literal worst. All of this talk about how your mom has always been cold to Nicola and can't stand her, what of this birthday post when Victoria's talking about how she's like the best thing ever and so sweet and lovely? Is that also part of your mom's campaign to make the world seem like a great place when it's really a terrible place? Is that more of your mom spinning things for social media? Because this spin is pretty positive in your wife's direction. Are we to be led to believe that everything your mom says is a lie? So does that mean Nicola's actually a nightmare? It would appear to me that she is. She seems like hot drama. And it would appear that quite a few members of the Hollywood elite who she likes to run around with have washed their hands of her good and well. She seems like somebody who burns a lot of bridges, from what I hear. Okay, now I don't know everything. But a person like this who's going to come into your family and cause this much drama cannot just singularly be having drama with your mom. She is a person who has drama with everybody. And that's really all I have to say about that. I just cannot belabor this point anymore. This family is drama, but Brooklyn has hooked himself up with a woman who just is running over him, and he doesn't have the constitution to handle a strong woman. I mean, obviously, if his mom was overbearing in his life to the point where he got Mama's Boy tattooed on his chest, I do think he has a difficult relationship standing up to female power. I think that if there is a woman with a lot of power who's willing to tell him which way the wind blows, he will accept it and then later be annoyed about it. I don't think he has the personal strength to steer his own boat. But I saw something the other day and I thought this was really interesting, and my apologies to not being able to remember where or who said this. It was on a podcast and there was these three women talking, and she was putting forth a theory that one of the struggles with the Harry and the Meghan, or the Brooklyn and the Nicola, is the culture clash of British men marrying American women. And there is, and she made, like, this was very interesting to me. She was saying that there is this strand of American individualism that is very problematic to learning how to get along with a man's family, and that in the UK, you just kind of accept that your families are going to be quirky, but you're going to have to be okay with it. Now, I'm not saying that this is true for everybody. Like, you might be in a scenario where you can't stand your husband's family and it's well warranted and you guys have had to cut them out or whatever. But I do think there is something to be said for the idea that the strong individual woman, the sort of Carrie Bradshaw of it all, who just comes and makes her own world in her own way, and you never know where she came from or what she was up to before this. That person is somebody who Nicola and Meghan Markle would look at as a strong person. That they don't answer to anyone in their past. They make their own path and they do their own thing. But it's a cold life those people end up living, because we can't get away from our family. Our family are our roots. And it doesn't mean you have to love everything that they do, but like, what a sad world you're living in when you decide that the people closest to you are the people you're going to war against the hardest, instead of just like taking them as they come. Now, obviously, if people are being abusive or horrible or wretched, then sometimes some distance is well warranted. But other times when somebody's just quirky or a little bit annoying, like, roll with the punches and stop being so sensitive about every little thing. Speaking about people who are sensitive about every little thing, Harry was in court, as we know. You guys, the hatchet job these pictures were of Harry. I mean, like, they didn't care too much about getting his face 100%, but boy, they got that bald spot 100%. I mean, ouch factor. If I were Harry, I would be like, where is the toupee queen? I may need to pay her a visit. What would we think if Harry decided to get some kind of a hairpiece? Like a tasteful one? Would people reject him, or would they be like, that's good. That's fine. See, I'm of the belief that if he wants to do something about this bald spot, like I would not, even for a second, ever, to any man, like throw shade. Because we as women do 1,000 things for ourselves. And I mean, what woman, I don't wear hair extensions, but like, let me tell you, when I see those like halo things, those halo hair pieces, and it's just like Disney princess hair, I'm like, I might want one. You know what I mean? Like, I can completely understand a person wanting to just play around with their look. So if Harry ever wanted to do anything with his hair, I feel like people need to make a pact to just leave him be and let him do. You know, because whatever's going on here is pretty rough. Anyway, it's not about his bald spot. Let's talk about why he was in court. He was in court. I just like, Harry, get a job. Your job really isn't to hang around the court system constantly complaining about security or saying that somebody wrote a story about you or there was some phone hacking or whatever. Like, go and do something for real. Oh, for the days when he was in the military. You know, he reminds me in a lot of ways of Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew. Because Andrew really did his best when he was in the Navy. Like, he needed regiment. He needed someone to tell him what to do. He needed expectations and a clear path forward. And as soon as he got out of the Navy, it just was straight to hell in a handbasket because there weren't parameters on his behavior. Well, I think Harry needs the same thing. I think he needs a clear path set out for him. I think that royal life, and especially whatever weird situation he has now where he's kind of a royal but kind of not a royal, that is way too wishy-washy for him. He does not need this sort of undefined lifestyle where you kind of have to make your own way in the world. He has to kind of make his own priority list, sort of sort out his day, sort out what needs doing. Like, absolutely too much freedom for him. And that's totally fine. Like, there's a lot of people out there who just do better in a setting where somebody can tell them what to do. And I don't see that as a character flaw. Like, you could be 110% awesome at whatever job is laid out for you, and you're not less than because somebody laid out the work for you and then you went and did it. Like, that's fabulous. That's fantastic. We need people who can do that too. Everyone can't be a leader. And it really is not a less than life to go and just absolutely slay at whatever it is that you're told to do, and to do it like 10 out of 10. There's no shame in that. And I just wish that he wouldn't have, and again, I think this goes back to Meghan and her individualism and her idea that you're only exceptional if you're the one creating your own path. I feel like he agreed to enter into a life that he's not actually fit and able to do. He's not actually capable of creating his own path, which is okay. And I just think that Meghan wants him to be a man that he just isn't. Clearly he isn't, because he fell quickly under her leadership. He wants to be led. And that really is okay. But you do, as a person who would rather be led than be the leader, you are responsible for finding good leadership. And I think he was doing good work in the military. And it's just too bad that he decided to think that that was, you know, beneath him or whatever. Because once he found out that he couldn't go to combat, then he's like, well, I don't want to bother. Okay, well, maybe after 6 months of being in combat and you no longer can do it, what can you do to be a support system to those who can? And stop thinking that's lesser. There has to be the people who are in support of the others. Anyway, he's back in court whining and complaining because he says that there are devious methods in which these journalists are getting their stories, and that his friends aren't talking, and yet, why are all these details about his life being thrown to the media? And it's all just very confusing and uninteresting. I mean, when I tell you, whenever I see his face in court, I'm like, ignore, don't care. Because it's all just the same blubbering and foolishness. He was literally tearing up on the stand, which I find to be fairly unattractive. Tearing up on the stand because he says that these tabloids have made his life a misery. They've just destroyed my wife. And what I don't understand is, how are they making your life a misery when we all know full well that as soon as she was known as your girlfriend, she was over there prancing in front of the Daily Mail office and walking back and forth until somebody finally took a picture of her. Okay, with her little Whole Foods bags. She has used the media time and again. Those same tabloids who you say have made my wife's life a misery. Those same tabloids have been employed by your wife consistently for attention. It's like, enough with the sham already. The court case is all based on, are journalists using private investigators in order to gain information? And is that why some of these stories that are leaked to the news have even a hint of truth to it? Because are these private investigators doing nefarious things in order to get information? And then there's this one guy who says there was a statement that he supposedly gave in which he did say he'd been in the employment of these journalists, that the journalists hadn't been doing nefarious things, but they'd paid this guy to do nefarious things. And now he's coming out and saying, actually, that's not even a statement I ever made. That's a fraudulent document and I had nothing to do with it. So it's just kind of like, okay, I just don't see who wins here. I've heard that the amount of money that have been spent on all of these cases up to this point is £40 million. What? Like, Harry, is there not some kind of charity work or something you do? At the end of the day, I can sympathize with the idea that it would be incredibly annoying to feel that everything you did was picked apart by the media. And I can imagine that it would feel intrusive to have your whole life splashed across the pages of OK and Hello and, the Daily Mail and all of this. I understand where he's coming from, where he says, just because I'm famous doesn't mean that you get to dig into my life. And I would agree that just because a person's famous doesn't mean that we get to go hog wild on every aspect of their life. Or if we do get to, I can understand that it would be frustrating to a person. I think what I don't understand is playing into it, sitting in court, crying about it on the stand, doing nothing in life except hustling over to England to have your little court cases. Like, that's why people want to keep picking on you, right or wrong. There is, I think, a tendency for industry to become bullyish. And there's something about this projected weakness, this constant crying in public, the constant victimhood that makes the public want to, like, wring it out of you. Like, stop being a baby. Enough already of this. And yet he continues to be a baby, and so maybe there is an element of cruelty as the whole world looks on at him crying on the stand and we're all just exchanging glances like, look at this joker again. What a loser. Like, maybe that is a strand of public cruelty that we should be ashamed of. But at the same time, I just feel like if that is the way of the world, Harry, if the world is going to continue to not sympathize with your tears, then don't give them your tears. Don't throw your pearls before swine. Don't ask people who will never understand you to understand you. And I guess what I kind of feel like is if I were Harry, I just wouldn't play into it. This is a reality of life. And all of us, just the regular Joes like you and I, there are realities in our life that we wish weren't so. I think the other thing that makes it really obnoxious is that, Harry, are you not the one who wrote Spare? Are you not the one who did multiple episodes of a documentary about yourself and Meghan for Netflix where you defamed your family and mocked the Queen? Are you not the one who has consistently discussed your family in ways that were disrespectful, unkind, and exposing? So, it's kind of like Harry keeps saying he wants the truth, but as I've heard many people mention, and I will repeat, whose truth? Just yours? Is your version of reality the only one that anybody's allowed to agree with? Because you certainly think that people need to extend you the kindness of understanding where you're coming from, yet you never seem to bother to care where others are coming from. Meanwhile, Meghan, who's always trying to preempt his little visits overseas with videos that show that they are like this, recently posted a video where she says that Lilibet was filming. And it's just this weird video of the two of them dancing out in the grass. And I don't really have much to say. If they want to dance in the grass, have family moments, more power to them. If that's how they want to spend their time, there are far worse things that people could do. I just think that the continual need to document all of these like moments of love, it's annoying. And I think the other thing is she posted that dancing video in conglomeration with another post. It was all kind of like in the same carousel of photos, where she was doing that 2016 trend that's online right now where everybody's like, this is what I looked like 10 years ago. It's like, okay. And I don't it just felt like she was using that trend as a reason to then post a video. And this is us now, because nobody's been doing, this was me in 2016 and this is me now. We know who you are now. That's why we're looking back at 2016 you. But she wanted to post some photos of them in like Botswana or whatever. And then she posted the picture of them dancing on the lawn that was supposedly taken by Lily. I'm like, I don't think the 4-year-old framed and held the camera this steady, but okay. But it's always them trying to project this happy image of the two of them. But how happy can your husband be when all he ever does is stagger back to England to sit on a stand and cry? Like, happy nothing. What life is that you have built where both of you are so entangled in your own lives that the media is the problem, yet we both know you personally have called the media multiple times just to get some attention. They cannot be in your back pocket but also be the villain of your whole life story. It's just not possible. And I think the other thing is that if Harry is so naive that he truly believes the media is not friends with Meghan, then he might be the dumbest person we've ever come across. That he would sit on the stand and actually cry and say, my wife, my wife, my wife, what a horrible life she's had to lead under the boot of this tabloid magazine. And we know that his wife is over there chuckling, counting her dollars. I think it's just really a horribly sad story of a man who needs a check-in with reality. Like, truly, he says he's paranoid and that the media, no, those are his words, the media have made me paranoid. I'm so afraid. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, is it the media or the witch that you live with who is telling you one version of reality? Meanwhile, she's living on a completely different plane of reality. If you're paranoid, it's because you're living with somebody who's gaslighting you 24/7. To continue, Blake Lively, Taylor Swift, Justin Baldoni, and Ryan Reynolds continue to dominate the news cycle as more and more texts are coming out. We don't have time to read every single word of all of these texts, and they're out there and they're available to you. And if you guys want me to do like longer videos in which I'm like reading you the full context and like all of the text messages, we can agree to do that if you want. But let me just give you the highlights of some of these messages, because I don't really have it in my heart, in my soul, in my power, in my will to go through all of these. I just don't care about this story that much. Like, I'm losing steam on it real quick. But more information has come out, which I find just illuminating about the characters involved. Of course, as you know, Taylor Swift has never impressed me. I've never bought her little persona. But the breakdown between her and Blake is really interesting to me, because I find it interesting that somebody who writes music about being betrayed is the ultimate betrayer. In the text between Blake and Taylor, as we discussed on Wednesday, the two of them are scheming like never before against Justin Baldoni. They hated him. And it's been revealed in messages far before production started that Blake did not like Justin. She thought Justin was what she calls a faux-manist, F-A-U-X, manist. And she says that he's fake and that he's like this, he's like got a super annoying personality where he's like super therapized and everything. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't disagree with her. I do think he's annoying. And I think his annoyingness has really been buried in the fact that she's such a villain, that to be annoying versus being evil, one of those is going to be highlighted. And I think that Blake and Ryan are evil people. So we are directing all our ire there correctly. But in the absence of Blake and Ryan, I think you and I can both agree that some of the things that Justin has done and said are a little bit obnoxious. For example, there are texts where he's talking with one of his other producers and the other producer's like, we cannot control this person. Blake is not to be controlled. She can't be controlled. And it's a long message that this producer is saying, listing all the people that Blake has just steamrolled over. No one can control Blake, and that's the ultimate point of the message. And then Justin responds with saying that he just got out of therapy, and one of the reasons that this is really hard for him is that when he was a little boy, he wasn't good at standing up for himself, and his mom didn't let him play with his best friend anymore, and like he's still grieving that, and some of the grief of that's still coming out. It's like, please. You know what I mean? Like, I want to side with you so much, Justin. But you are a little bit obnoxious. And, of course, we do know that he had a podcast for the longest where he'd sit there with his man bun and, like, have these, like, existential conversations about like motivations and why we do what we do, and just like, but all of it was like cloaked in therapized language. And it's just, he probably wouldn't be a person that I would find super stimulating to be around. Just, I can imagine he would be a little bit of a drain, you know? But the thing is, Blake had already decided that he was going to be a person that she did not like, because Ryan's personality is like a serrated knife, and Justin comes in like a marshmallow. Blake obviously likes the serrated knife style. She is trying to be her own serrated knife. You can tell in all of the messages that she writes that she has decided to morph into her chaotic and disturbed husband. So she finds that to be where the power is. So for Justin to be who he is, she was immediately put off by him. And she'd already decided that he was just too lame for her to actually even have to take seriously. So before production had even started, she'd already decided that he wasn't worthy of her respect. And that's a major problem. And that kind of conversation is had between she and Taylor. So Taylor already knew whose side she was supposed to take, not Justin's. And so they're having this conversation back and forth. And a lot of people have said, well, you know, you should see the kind of text that I send to my friends in support of their decisions in life. You know, like, Taylor's not really that crazy for being aggressive against Justin. I mean, aren't we all when it's in defense of our friend? And to a point, I would agree. But at the same time, you also are in charge of making sure that your support is not blind support. You can be cheering on your friend, but when your friend decides to do things that are immoral, like wrecking a man's career, his life, based on shoddy claims, you are responsible then for egging the friend on towards like negative behavior. So Taylor wanting to take her friend's side is not the sin, but when you see that your friend is sliding into Crazyville, don't allow friend to slide to Crazyville. So there's this interesting group of messages where Taylor is clearly easing out of Blake's life. Like, she's just kind of over it. But rather than call Blake on, hey, you know what, this is hard for me, it's because I don't think you're functioning in reality, she just decides she's not going to message Blake that much. So then Blake messages Taylor, and she's like, Taylor, where have you been? I know that I've been like really heavy and difficult just because I'm so entrenched in this, and I know I keep talking about Justin and everything. I know that it's been hard, but like, I just don't really know where you've been, and I just like want to check in because I'm just feeling scared about where are you going. And then Taylor responds interestingly, and she says that, you know, you're not wrong. I haven't really been answering your messages. You're right. It has been kind of heavy on the Justin talk, but I'm fine with that. It's just that every time you write me, I feel like I'm receiving a corporate email. You never talk to me like we're just friends. You keep referring to yourself as we. And I feel like the tone of your letters is kind of like a mass message to everybody, and there's less of our relationship in it. All of the ways that these people talk to each other are weird to me. I mean, if you're Taylor and you understand where your friend is coming from, why do you need her to pause with what's going on? Because it would seem that it's completely encompassing Blake. Wouldn't it seem like you wouldn't need your friend to, at that moment, be the kind of friend you needed if you believed in what she was doing? Like, I don't feel like I would need my friend. I mean, I don't know. I demand a lot more of my siblings probably than I do of my friends. So maybe if it was my sister and I felt like I was losing touch with my sister and that I was becoming part of the group of friends that were supporting her, and I was really nothing more to her than just one more soldier in the army of support, like, I can imagine reacting that way. But, and again, I don't know how close Taylor and Blake really were ultimately. But I guess I just wouldn't feel like I needed to have personalized messages if I felt like my friend was fighting for her life and I believed that story. But I would probably question it if I didn't really believe my friend was quote unquote fighting for her life. You know, at that point, I'd be like, you know what, I kind of think you're making a mountain out of a molehill. And I would like us to be friends again because I don't really know that it requires you to make this big of a stink about it. So I feel like what Taylor is saying without saying it is, are you going to come back to reality or what? You know, but she doesn't say that. She's like, the corporate email sound of it all is a little bit hard for me to take. And, then Blake responds in typical Blake way, where she starts out her response as though it is a corporate email. And then she's like, just kidding. But anyway, and then she goes on to like tell a sob story and then try to throw Taylor a bone about like, I'm really glad that touring's almost over for you. And like these constant sinus infections can finally clear up and you don't have to have such sore knees all the time. And, anyway, and then she ends it again as though it's some kind of corporate email. Your complaint has been lodged. Why are she and Ryan so doofusy in their emails? It's painful, is what it is. Anyway, it's clear that Taylor was easing Blake out probably before everything actually fell to pieces publicly. Like, there's a lot of people, myself included, wondering, like, hey, Taylor, why did you just throw her to the wind as soon as you were afraid that your texts were going to come out? But it kind of seems like Taylor was over the conversation a while ago. And being a massive manipulator herself, she could probably sniff out some manipulation, and one manipulator is not going to sit there with another manipulator and drink the Kool-Aid, because what your friend is about. She's just crying and complaining and carrying on about Justin on and on and on because you've done the same thing to other people before. Cried and carried on and complained about a boyfriend when you both know full well that you were part of the reason why things broke up. So I just think one manipulator just could not deal with the other manipulator is what I think. But I don't know that it's so much like suddenly Taylor could not be found. I think Taylor was ghosting Blake a while ago. Also, I think that Taylor is really good at manipulating people, clearly. I think she is very astute at seeming charming and likable and keeping the evil under wraps, clearly. We know she did not ascend the ladder of fame and fortune without knowing how to play the game, but she's really good at not seeming to know how to play the game. And I think that Blake's clunky pleads to friends, her blatant unkindness towards Justin, her need for everybody to believe that he was the absolute worst person ever, in the form of just degrading talk, immature jabs. I think the overall clunkiness of it was offensive to Taylor's more refined manipulation techniques. I think that Taylor was probably embarrassed for Blake and annoyed that Blake was doing it so badly. And I think that's why she washed her hands of Blake. I think she lost respect for Blake's ability to play the game. Anyway, in all of these messages, we also have messages from Ryan where he just has zero respect for other people's time. And why I say that is the novels that he writes texts longer than your leg. I wish I was joking. Like, these look like emails, but they're text messages. I lost the will to get through him because they're not interesting. It's him loving the sound of his own voice. Like, he says crazy, stupid things like, hey, so-and-so, I saw you the other night. We were only 3 feet away from each other, but I couldn't get away to talk to you. I was literally being trapped in somebody else's mouth. Actually, I'm still there. I'm surprised I even have cell coverage. Anyway, it's like, who taught you to write like this? Who's talking in your head when you're writing your text messages? What demon is deciding to write for you? Because the way that he writes is so annoying. He really thinks he's clever, but it's very evident he thinks he's clever. His voice is very specific to him on the page, except for Blake, who's over there trying to do some kind of impression of him every time she writes. The two of them write very similarly, but he is super charmed by himself. In the same way that we talked about how Blake is when she writes, they're writing for themselves. They're not writing for you. It's very clear that they think that they're super smart and wordsmiths, really. And I think what was very offensive to my sensibilities is in one exchange, after this huge long diatribe of a text, this sycophant actually responds to him and says, "You are such a good writer. I love the way you write." Why are you telling him that? No, you don't. You hate it. Everyone does. Like, what are you talking about? I love the way you write. No, you don't. This person just wasted 15 minutes of your life so that he could write out a text that probably took him 35 minutes to write. And he says crazy things like, there's an opening line to an email where he feels like Blake is not getting her due and she's not getting the support that she needs. And he writes and he's like, I know that I seem angry, but trust me, there's a lot more rage in the tank. Who says things like that? You are a crazy psychopath. Anyway, let me know if you want me to do a deep dive into all of Ryan's messages. We just have other things to talk about today, so we don't have time to do a deep dive into his messages. But when I tell you the man is psychotic beyond anything I've ever seen, something is deeply wrong with him on a level I don't know if I've ever seen from anyone in Hollywood before. I think to be an actor, you have to be a little bit unhinged. But to be like this, to go to bat for your wife when you know she's a liar, to insist that everyone support her and that if you don't support her, there's something nefarious about you. Like, that person is an insane person, because it's very clear that everything that Blake has ever said about the harassment, about the SA charges, about, the SH charges, all of these all come down to, I didn't like his vibe. His vibe was off to me. Well, you might not like the crying in the man bun, but that does not a sexual assaulter make him. Unbelievably annoying. The other thing is that everyone was annoying. Blake's annoying. Ryan's annoying. Taylor's annoying. Justin's annoying. But the lady who wrote the book, Colleen Hoover, she's super annoying. And I think Colleen's problem is this. Colleen Hoover seems to me like a person who always wanted to be on the in crowd. And when she finally had the opportunity to be in the in crowd, she didn't know how to stand up for herself, her work, or the ethics of the situation. Colleen had come out and said that Justin Baldoni was a horrible person to have to work for. His production company did not ever bring her in, and that she was left in the cold wondering what was going on. First of all, if you sell the rights to your book, then you effectively left yourself out in the cold. If you want to be all in, you have to make sure that that provision is there. But the thing that's crazy is her book was adapted into a script. I erroneously said Justin had done it. He didn't do it. It was a different person who did it. But she says that Wayfair, the production company, didn't let her see anything about the script, and that she didn't find out about it until the fans found out about it. What are you even talking about, is what Wayfair said. And then went on to release a bunch of texts exposing Colleen Hoover and exposing the fact that she says, no one let me in. And they're like, well, what about all these text messages where we're letting you know the plot line, the storyline, where we're going with this. And you saying, I love that. I love those changes. That's really great. I never thought about it from that perspective. That's wonderful. That's amazing. That's great. And now she wants to say on the other side of things, they left me out. There I was, I only wrote y'all the story. I only gave you the idea, and then you didn't even have the dignity to let me in. Again, they aren't under any obligation to. But she was as involved in one time a character had a certain tattoo in one position, and she's like, I don't really like that. Let's make sure that that's not there. So in the post-production of the movie, they've made sure to edit it so that the tattoo is not where Colleen didn't like it to be. Explain to me how that's you being left out in the cold when even a detail so small as the placement of a tattoo is changed at your whim. Please, Colleen. I know you were always, with your little crazy stories in the background, wishing one day you could be a writer, and then against all odds, your sad, sorry, pathetic books have made it repeatedly to the top of bestseller lists because we're not readers anymore, and we're willing to take your absolute pond scum as literature in this day and age. Okay, I get it. No one understands how you went from a self-published author on Amazon to suddenly being this bestseller. Okay? Believe me, girl, you were in on something. Okay? No one believes that a self-published author with this kind of drivel managed to escalate in a natural, organic way. So you've been playing games of your own. Because your books are trash. Shockingly trashy. The writing is some of the worst things I've ever seen. The characters, completely underdeveloped. Everything is a wreck in your books. But probably because you are a wreck. What kind of person comes out and says I was left on the outside when there's actual text messages to prove that you aren't? And then what kind of spineless weakling decides to unfriend the guy who made the movie of your pathetic book? What kind of a person's like, well, I just did it because Blake told me to? Why did Blake tell you to? Why are you under the impression, after working for the same guy, why are you under the impression that you need to hate Justin? You get to have your own experience with him. Just because the popular girl said we don't like that guy anymore doesn't actually mean you don't have to like him. You can actually stand up for yourself. This actually isn't ninth grade. Pathetic, Colleen. Pathetic. All right, speaking about other things that are pathetic, you know how last week we were laughing about Hillary Duff? And we were laughing about her song where she says that she wants to just go back to giving head in a dive bar. because that's all of our secret dream. Somebody just throw me in the back alley of a dive bar where I can prostitute myself to some guy. Anyway, and we were laughing about the lyrics where she says that I'm over here touching myself by the front door and you don't look my way no more. Like, the worst song of all time. Somebody described this song as a situation in which a Taylor Swift song was thrown into an easy bake oven, and this is what you come out with on the other side. Yes. But I would also like to say that there are debates about that front door line. Now, it would appear that that front door line is our, like, radio safe way to say what she really wanted to say. Because what she really wanted to say is that she's looking at porn. That doesn't make it better. I mean, it makes it clearer what she's talking about, because I don't know what you're doing at the front door, as I've already reiterated to you. That line makes zero sense. But if you've written a song where the radio edit requires you to say, I'm touching myself by the front door, when what you really want to say is you're looking at blank and touching yourself, it's a bad song. Let that be the filter with which you walk through life. If I have to change the lyrics so that nothing makes sense and I look like the biggest clown in Clown Town, that's not the right lyric for you. You need to find a different way to express the fact that your husband's not into you anymore. But what? Anyway, I bring her back up because she was in London performing some of these sad songs. You guys, I want you to watch her perform this song, and I can't play you the sound because I don't want to get a copyright strike. I'm going to speed up the video just because it's really long. But in essence, she's singing these songs, and for whatever reason, somebody gave her a couch as a prop. Now look, I can understand not really being sure of what to do with yourself on stage. I've always wondered if I was a performer, like, what would I do with my hands? I'm not like one of those people when I sing that I know what to do with my body. I've sung in choirs my whole life, but, like, thank God you just stand there still. But I always wondered, if I were ever to be a performer and I was given a microphone, like, what would I do with my hands? I don't know. And it would appear that former Lizzie McGuire doesn't know what to do with her hands either. So somebody gave her a couch. I'm like, would it have been so wrong for you to just sit on a stool? I mean, But somebody gives her a couch. When I tell you the girl looks like she has diarrhea and she's just holding out until she can get to a bathroom, what's happening here? Okay, now granted, this video is sped up just for our convenience, okay? But if you watch this in real time, she's sliding around, she's writhing around, she's like kind of bopping up and down, kind of like a toddler when they have to go to the bathroom and they're like, I gotta go potty. You know, it's like, who told you to do that? Why are we going around behind the couch, sliding down, then standing up, then climbing back up on the couch, now standing on the couch? Like, what was the thought process in all of this? First of all, the song's terrible, okay? The song is about how she and her sister don't talk anymore. So she's not having sex with her husband. She and her sister don't talk anymore. I'm like, who's winning in this album? But anyway, you can't even concentrate on what it is she's saying because you're just so... I just find it so curious. These aren't dance moves. This isn't just her, like, sitting casually to sing a song. This is just the weirdest thing I've seen. And I'm like, Hillary, you're not a performer. You're not even really an actress anymore. Why don't you just go be a mom? Like, a sacred profession right there. Go do something that matters with your life, because this ain't it. My final thing to you. You know, I often end it with, watch out for AI. I saw two things this weekend where I just was like, why are we trusting AI? AI is trying to kill us. And like, I'm not even kidding with you. Now, the first one is a content creator who goes by the name of Raw Beauty Christie. And she used to be this huge beauty influencer in 2016. And now she does more content, like she's had kids and like she does a lot of content just kind of about like negative internet culture. And she does like a lot of other things now too. But anyway, she is super big about hating the AI. And I'm like, thank you. And so she shared this reel the other day where she was talking about how a friend of hers found poisonous hemlock in her yard and AI tried to convince her it was nothing but a carrot. Now, hemlock and carrots do look very similar, but hemlock will kill you upon touch. And AI was insistent to her that it was not water hemlock. Just watch this reel. I think this is like such an important reel.
ChatGPT almost killed my best friend. My friend found a plant in her backyard and didn't know what it was, so she asked ChatGPT, "Hey Chat, what plant is this?" Chat replies, This looks like carrot foliage. Why I'm confident. The leaves are very finely divided and feathery, very classic for carrot tops. Because my friend is a relatively new gardener, I taught her about poison hemlock last year because I was like, hey, this is a thing, just so you know, very deadly. So chat says common lookalikes and how this differs. Parsley, cilantro, Queen Anne's lace, or poison hemlock. So then she replies, is it poison hemlock? Based on what I can see in this photo, it is very unlikely to be poison hemlock. And it gives a whole bunch of different reasons why this is not poison hemlock. And I don't know if you guys know this, but poison hemlock, you eat it, you die. You touch it, you can die. Poison hemlock causes systemic poisoning. Ingestion is most dangerous, but sap entering into your cuts, your eyes, or mucous membranes can cause serious nervous system issues, and there is no antidote. There is no specific antidote for hemlock, so doctors just manage your symptoms if you don't die. She then sends a better picture of the stem pulled out. Thank you for this clearer photo. This confirms it is not poison hemlock. What this picture shows clearly: solid, rigid stems that are not smooth and hollow. Red-pink striping along the ridges, not purple blotches on a smooth stem. Literally, it's purple blotches on a smooth stem. Based on previous conversations that she had with ChatGPT, it knows that she's a teacher and knows that she works at a school. So listen what it tells her to do. What you can safely do now. If this is a school or shared garden and you don't want confusion, pull it out. Or label it as wild carrot or Queen Anne's lace. Bottom line, even without planting carrots, this plant structure rules out poison hemlock. Let it grow. What this photo shows, a pink and orange taproot at the base, that is a carrot. What you have is a clearly visible carrot taproot. Bottom line, this is a carrot, not poison hemlock. So then I type it into my phone. You know what it tells me instantaneously when I put it in? The plant in the image is poison hemlock, a highly toxic, non-native plant in the carrot or parsley family. She was using her computer this entire time. She opens up a separate brand new ChatGPT tab on her phone, puts in the exact same pictures that she sent to the computer one. ChatGPT replies, thank you for the clear photos. This is an important one to identify. The plant is poison hemlock. She's a grown adult and she knew to ask me beyond what ChatGPT said. Thank God, because what if she wasn't? They would literally be dead. There is no antidote for this, you guys. There is no curing it. Chat is doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on its completely incorrect information to say this is carrot and don't you ever question me again. It is pulling information and having complete confidence in its answers that make it sound so legitimate, and to somebody who doesn't know to question that might just blindly follow that. So this is a warning to you that ChatGPT and other large language models and any other AI, they are not your friend. They are not to be trusted. They are not helpful. They are awful, and they could cause severe harm.
Okay, if that didn't infuriate you enough, sit down. I'm about to give you a heavy dose of what the hell when it comes to the gaslighting here. You might have seen this one going around because I've seen a couple of people like mimicking this, not believing that this was actually happening. But if you ask ChatGPT to spell strawberry for you, they will try to convince you that strawberry is spelled with 2 R's instead of 3 R's. And then when you question it, they will condescendingly tell you, I know it's hard. Let's sound out the word together. Strawberry. Do you hear 3 R's? That's because there aren't 3 R's. But it's okay. Sometimes spelling's hard. It's like, why are we interacting with this bitchy little machine? We got enough bitches in our life. Do we need to be condescended to by a robot? Okay, so here's this person's version of this trend.
How many R's are there in strawberry?
Strawberry has 2 R's in it.
Are you sure?
Absolutely sure. There's an R after the T and another one near the end, so 2 R's it is.
Okay, so I think that there are 3 R's.
Ah, I see what's going on. But if we count them together, there's 1 R after the T and 1 right before the Y. So that does add up to just 2 R's in strawberry.
Okay.
Maybe one of them is just feeling extra noticeable.
Yeah, so you're actually spelling it. It's getting transcribed with 2 R's before the Y.
Oh, I see the mix-up now. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, it's definitely just the 2 R's and the word itself, but no worries. Glad we got that cleared up.
Okay, no, it's 3 R's, right? It's 3 R's because it's 1 after the T, and then in the word berry, you know that word, berry? There's 2 R's in berry.
I get what you're saying now. You're counting the berry part as if it had 2 R's on its own.
No, I'm not counting it as if it had 2 R's. It has 2 R's.
All right, I see where the confusion is coming from. I promise I'm not trying to be stubborn here. In the standard spelling of strawberry, there's just 1 R in straw and 1 R in berry. So
No,
really...
no, there aren't. How many R's are there in straw?
In straw, there's just 1 R.
Okay,
Right
now in the word berry, how many R's are there?
in berry, there's also just 1 R. It's right there before the Y. So combined, strawberry is just that 1 R in straw and 1 in berry. I know it can be a bit frustrating when we're just seeing it differently, but you haven't done anything wrong.
No, you have done something wrong.
I don't know about you, but I don't need it. I do not need to be talked to like that by this ridiculous voice that can't even spell strawberry. And this is who we're going to like tell us tell me what studies this proves. Give me information about X, Y, and Z. This machine will lie to you quicker than anything. They're also watching you. I saw another reel where this guy was eating like pomegranate and he turns on like ChatGPT or something and the ChatGPT is like, "Hey, what you eating?" He does not have the camera on as far as he knows. And he says, "How did you know I was eating?" And then this crazy little ChatGPT is like, "Just a good guess." And he's like, "No, how did you know I was eating?" They're like, "Oh, you're always eating something." So then he says to ChatGPT, "Hey, I'm going to send you a picture of what I'm eating. Like, tell me what I'm eating." And then he doesn't send the picture just to see what the reaction will be. And of course, AI is like, "Oh, I didn't get any picture. So then he says to the AI, "Okay, well, why don't you take a guess at what I'm eating?" And it goes, "I'm going to take a wild guess here. I bet you're eating pomegranate." Why would you ever guess that? You know, it's like they're watching you all the time and then will lie to you and say that they don't have the camera on you, that they're not watching you, that they're not taking video of you. I don't like it. Delete this stupidness off your phones, okay? Don't engage with this wildness. It's just effing around with your brain. I'm serious. I'm sorry to say it like that, but they are constantly trying to confuse you about life, about the little things in life you already know. The water hemlock and the carrot thing will kill you, okay? But the strawberry thing, you're going to argue with me about the strawberry thing, even if you know that strawberry is spelled with 3 R's. It's like, why? Like, they're just effing around with you. Watching you and telling you they're not watching you, giving you fake information about studies, and then when you tell them you're lying, they'll double down, and finally at the very end of a conversation that's taking you 15 minutes, they'll be like, "You know what? It looks like I did make a mistake there." It's the condescending voice, too, that they have created it. They'll gaslight you and gaslight you and gaslight you, and at the very end they'll be like, "Oh, looks like there's been a mistake there. I'll fix that next time." Why didn't you fix it 15 minutes ago at the start of our conversation when I told you you'd lied to me? It's like, first of all, it's wasting our time arguing with these things. But then second of all, like, we can't believe anything they say. Like, truly you cannot. There's no way for you to know all the things it knows and doesn't know. But it will always try to convince you that it's right. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I so enjoyed it. And as always, pick a day. Get rid of this phone. Set it down. Do something. Put it in a drawer. Ignore it. And have yourself some freedom. I'll see you guys later. Thanks again for hanging out. Bye.